Big story that we talked about yesterday, we all spoke about yesterday, I believe, and that is that Police Chief John Drake, Nashville Police Chief John Drake, making the announcement, which really wasn't a surprise because the reporting had been out there, that because of staffing shortages, he says that we will not have SROs in elementary schools. Now, there's a lot of people that are looking at this, and, Scott Sapicki, state rep, is one of them who joined me yesterday about this same topic. And a lot of people may be calling BS on this story. I want to find out from J.C. Bowman, the Professional Educators of Tennessee. That's the organization you're with. J.C., thanks very much for being here. And I know that this was the topic of conversation yesterday. Adrian Battle, of course, Nashville Public Schools director, Adrian Battle, has previously defended not putting SROs in elementary schools, citing concerns about criminalizing child behavior. And I think that the question is, okay, so is Police Chief John Drake, is he basically throwing Battle a solid by saying, well, we don't have the staffing, but in reality, he is purposely keeping SROs out of the elementary schools to help out Adrian Battle, or is it really about staffing issues? And JC, I know that you are obviously incredibly plugged into the teachers across Tennessee and Middle Tennessee. So you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, number one, I do think that Drake is protecting, to some extent, Adrian Battle. I think he should have applied for all of those dollars. And what is there a shortage? Absolutely, there's a shortage. I mean, we've just expanded it across the state. So there's going to be workforce challenges everywhere. There's going to be a need to attract SROs. I understand that. We got to work on retention and hiring. I get all that. But I don't understand why he didn't apply for those dollars. I mean, even if you put it in one or two, and parents are upset, teachers cite school safety and student discipline. And this isn't just about student discipline. These are a whole myriad of issues that we go through across as parents and teachers we see every day in our schools, and then we deal with. I mean, it is a hub of the community activity during the day. So, yeah, I mean, I can't believe, honestly, that they didn't go ahead and apply for that and start the training for the upcoming year. It has to be protecting of the school board and the superintendent.
Well, one of the things that Drake said was that they can't apply for these dollars if they don't have the applications to justify applying for the dollars from the state. I don't know how all of that works. To me, I do smell BS. I don't know, and I did question this yesterday, whether or not the outreach of Police Chief John Drake to try to find SROs has been passionate enough, even though he says that, he's done everything that he can. I will just tell you that how is it that all of these other districts all across Tennessee, and I named them all yesterday, you have, Murfreesboro, you've got Robertson, you've got the counties of, Williamson County, Wilson County. I could go on and on, but all of these other counties have the SROs that they need, but somehow mysteriously, you've got Davidson County that doesn't. The only thing that makes sense to me is what you and Scott Sapicki said yesterday, which is that they're trying to protect Adrian Battle. But the problem is it lacks all common sense. And I guess that's my problem is, trying to actually understand the idiocy of people. And I'm getting political. The idiocy on the left where, we have what happened at Covenant. And then here we are with, Dr. Adrian Battle. Some folks are saying she doesn't want SROs in schools. And now John Drake, the police chief, is, sort of, as you said, protecting her. The reasoning doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, have we seen anything in the statistics that show that when you put SROs in schools, literally to protect the students, that it somehow criminalizes childhood behavior?
No, and I would argue that look, SROs feel this. You got to go back to this, and I go back to say this to you, Dan. What is an SRO? It's a sworn law enforcement officer that either works full or part-time, and they are specially trained to work with children. So that I understand if he's saying, well, we need to get them trained. Well, they hire them and get them trained. I mean, so that's not the problem, but they are there to respond to emergencies. And look, right now, Dan, one of the things we deal with is non-custodial parents who try to pick their child up in elementary school. So they're there to pick them up. I mean, if you have an SRO on campus, it helps curb that behavior. It helps protect, dealing with trespassers and other crimes that people come on campus to commit. Yep. There's violence. I mean, it's everything.
Well, and the other thing, J.C. Bowman joining us, professional educators of Tennessee. The other thing that I would say is when you're talking about elementary school, now I could possibly see how that argument would apply. It's like the old Obama argument, right? So I could see how that might apply in the high schools, but not in elementary school.
Very few arrests. Now, I will go back and point out, I mean, you had a first grader in Virginia that shot a teacher last year. So, I mean, yes, it does happen, and that child will be in the system somehow, working, getting help, and the parents were charged and whatever. But again, it is a rare occurrence. And what we've seen, and I talk about this all the time, is that, I mean, I'm going down back to Hamilton County. I was there yesterday. We're going back down to Hamilton County. We're going through, which is a large urban district. We're going to go through the schools. And the superintendent was telling me, and they do have SROs in elementary schools, how the children react. They run, they hug, they love they love the people there. And he was telling me, he said he thought it was unusual the first time he saw it. And he said, he asked the principal, he said, is that common practice? And he said, oh, absolutely. He said that young man that just hugged the police officer, his mother had died 2 weeks earlier, and the police officer was the only person he would talk to about his mother. So, I mean, they are there, and it's not just a guidance counselor, but they see it as a safe environment. I think it's a good thing. I mean, I listen to that excuse where, well, we don't want children to see adults with guns in our schools. And it's a security issue. But I go, they had no hesitation to take their kids to a Titans game or somewhere else that we go into every day where there's law enforcement that are there secured. I went at a mall yesterday. I had a minute or two to take off time. I'm there in a makeup store. There was literally a security officer. As I walked by, I saw the security officer in the window. I mean, it's commonplace now, and we don't even think about it. But it's very much needed because teachers cite that as one of the main reasons, Dan, is leaving, is that student discipline and not feeling safe. They do not feel safe in their schools. I mean, we saw that Antioch teacher, and that was high school, and I understand that. But they left after the second incident where he was pepper sprayed. But the 2 weeks before that, he had been hit. And we're not prosecuting kids. Metro Schools doesn't prosecute kids.
JC, I guess the question, and this is sort of a sociological question, but you talk to experts, and one of the things that they will say is that we need to work on establishing trust between the community and law enforcement, and that is supposed to happen at a very early age. The earlier, the better. And so with, Dr. Adrian Battle and some of these other folks at the Metro Nashville Public Schools, the more that they try to keep SROs out of these schools, the worse it overall is for the community because you're not allowing that trust to be established.
You model behavior that you want seen. And what you're telling people is that we do not trust police officers. Are there bad actors in police? Absolutely. And what do? We remove them from the position, and if they commit crimes, we prosecute them, just like anybody else. But the children themselves, I think they're ascribing a behavior that just is not there, particularly in the elementary school. And I think that was actually a place where you would want to start an SRO program.
Yep.
When we talked to one of the things, Dan, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but one of the things that Chief Drake, and Chief Drake's a great man. I mean, I'll give him credit for this. He's a brave guy. He did what he said he was going to do and has done a lot of things. But I will say on this, I disagree with him. But when they had there's incidences that have occurred, I mean, they absolutely have their hands tied by the school district. And I don't understand why we allow the school district to dictate law enforcement issues, keeping the community safe, protecting lives and property.
Well, and it's not like we've seen a lot of great things coming out of Nashville Public Schools, Davidson County.
And if your teachers do not feel safe and they choose to go on, every year we open up the school year, we have a shortage of teachers. Between 300 to 500 will be out this year when you start. It is more than just salary that drives people out of the classroom. People think it's just, well, we'll throw more money at the problem. Eventually, they want better working conditions, and that includes feeling safe in the place that you work. And that is where I want to make a point to her that you're losing teachers because they don't feel safe. And you've got to overcome your own prejudice that is toward law enforcement here in the state. We have to work together to keep everybody safe.
JC, let me ask you, is there anything that teachers, because, I mean, you tell me, because I don't live in this crowd or this culture or whatever it is, but, you know, from your standpoint, with all of the contacts that you have, is there any chance that people may call out Chief Drake and say, Chief, we know that the people are there. We know the opportunity is there to bring in these SROs. You got 2 SROs in the high schools, bring one over to the elementary schools. Do you see any kind of a unified message being sent to Police Chief Drake saying, we know what you're doing, we know you're protecting Adrian Battle, and this is unacceptable? Do you see that actually happening?
I think that this has become a multiple day story, which is continuing to be a problem for him, not for her. So the problem hasn't shifted to her. I would love to be a fly on the wall when he has publicly stated he wants SROs in elementary. The problem is, and this is what I told another reporter, I'm like, well, when is he going to put them in there? Is he going to do it next year? When is the battle going to be fought with battle? I mean, that is the question. When is he going to go to her and say, look, we're putting SROs in elementary school next year. You've got this year, I've taken the brunt of this criticism, but this has become this is almost a week. I mean, the governor's weighed in on this.
Yep.
I mean, every single policy looks at this and they're just baffled by the decision, and they all go, wait a minute, it all stems from a school board and a school administrator with no law enforcement background, any of them, and saying we don't want law enforcement in our schools when our own people are saying we want to feel safe in our schools, and parents want their child to feel safe. It mind boggles. And this is why Metro Schools continues to decline in enrollment. We lose parents rather than trying to find reasons to bring them into our schools.
Well, and
it's an ideology, Dan.
Well, oh, trust me, I spend every day talking about the lunacy of these folks on the left. All right, JC Bowman, we missed anything? I got to run. If I missed anything, if so, wrap it up in 30 seconds.
No, you're good. And I'll tell you what, we're going to continue to talk about this. Every day that this becomes an issue, this is going to become a problem for Chief Drake.
Well, and gosh help us if, we have another issue like Covenant and there's no SROs in those schools to protect the kids. JC, keep me updated if there's any other updates. I'll be glad to have you on. And thank you very much for calling into Nashville's Morning News at 8:21.